Good evening, everyone. My name is Sumit, and I'm from Railway Academy. I'll be your host along with our master trainer, Mr. Ravi Prakash, today for this session. And as we wait for more participants to join today's session, I wanted to have some interactions with you. Few of you would be attending our Durgesh. We will share the recording with you on your email after the session and on our YouTube channel. So we'll send you all the requisite links to watch the recording again. So uh, I wanted to have some interactions with all of you as we wait for more participants to join and also our expert, Mr. Ravi Prakash, to join the session. So few of you would be joining this session, Railway Academy's Masterclass for the first time. Many of you would have already attended our previous webinars. So I wanted to ask you and utilize this time, in fact, to uh, ask you that which all other topics or topics of interest upon which you would like us to organize master classes in the future. If you have any ideas or inputs for us to work upon, please feel free to share the topics in the chat box. We'll be happy to work on them and plan master classes, webinars, or even courses on those topics for you. So just a request that if you have any ideas on which you would like us to plan expert interactions for you, please feel free to uh, write those topics in the chat box. Also, in the meantime, I would request you to please subscribe to our uh, LinkedIn page if you have not subscribed already. If you have not, I would also request you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you could get all the recordings. And we are also looking at building up some interesting content in the future on various topics like automatic train protection and Kavach. Okay, Lakshmi Narayan. So you would like to have a masterclass on automatic train protection and Kavach. Okay. Just to tell you, we already have a 4 hour uh, very good course on Kavach. So if you will actually check out our uh, website, which is Railway Academy, you will be able to find out uh, a, a, a very micro course on Kavach, which will be of very benefit or use to you. Additionally, what else are we getting? Okay. Durgesh Pratap Singh Tomar would like to have a course on EPC tendering and bidding. Okay, interesting. We'll discuss on that. And Omar Atik would like to know more about RAMS analysis. Okay, a point noted, Omar. We'll plan out a webinar or a micro course on this as well. Anybody else would like to share some more ideas for our team to work upon? Please feel free to write in the chat box. Yes, and do subscribe to these channels. So I'm sharing the QR codes of our channel, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube on your screen. Please scan it through your mobile phone and you can subscribe to our channels. If you have any other topics which you would like to, RSI studies with bridge instrumentation. Okay, okay, that's something that we will discuss definitely internally. Uh, are there any international participants who would like to share their ideas with us? Okay, okay. Ravi sir has joined.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening, Sumit. I just joined.
Okay, okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. We still have some time to
Yes,
start.
sir. So let me
Yeah.
first make you a co-host, sir, so that you have all the access. Okay. So apart from this, any other ideas which you have, please do share with us. Okay. PSI design and testing. Okay. Ravi Kumar. Okay. Fine. We are noting it down. We'll definitely come back to you. Rolling stock. Okay. Prashant Verma would like to have a webinar on rolling stock. What about digital railways, gentlemen? So anybody you not interested about knowing about modern technology advancements in railways? Any topics on that, those areas? Digital twins is coming up in a big way. Uh, Reliability engineering. What about those topics? Means uh, any advanced topics in signaling you'd like us to cover? AI in railways. Okay, Abdullah Ali, we already have done a webinar on AI, and we have a very good course program on AI for railway specifically. So let me just take you through. You can try that out. So let me just show you the course programs that we have already. So if you'll go to our website, you'll be able to find out a lot of courses here. So you can pick up. You can go to our website, and if you look at in the course segment, you'll be able to find. That we've got a good number of, we have free and micro courses. So micro courses are usually 4-hour course programs. So you can check out all these free and micro courses which are available. All the upcoming certificate courses are announced, are there. Self-paced, which are recorded course programs. And we also have tied up with institutions like IITs, IIMs, IIT Madras. We are doing a course program on rail cybersecurity, which is supposed to start in November. We are working on a 100-hour executive program with IIT Madras on AI applications for railways, which might be of interest to you. We are coming up with batch 2 of rail management in the month of November in collaboration with IIM Kashipur again. And we also have tied up with IIT Delhi. So we are also exploring opportunities in the semiconductor and electronic system design and manufacturing. That's another upcoming area which you can explore with us. We've got some courses coming up on semiconductors and analog circuits and power management, IC designs. So you can check out. If you'd like to check out courses by domain, maybe some of you would be railway signaling engineers, working in RAMs, rail management, metro and high-speed rail technology. You can find out a lot of course programs. We've also created courses as per the requirements of the various countries. So we've got courses suitable for Egypt, Middle East, Australia, Africa, which you can check out. For various profiles and goals, we have certain programs which you could explore. So I would request everyone to visit our websites, check out our courses. If you're interested to explore the courses, you can in fact check out our free and micro courses. So I think we've touched base on. So these are the courses. So you can check out. So we have a course on AI. We have a course on coming up on data loggers, electronic interlocking, signaling plan and control tables, railway functioning, axle counters, bonding plans, so all of these. So now I think it's time to start, and we have participants joining us. So let me just start with today's webinar. Okay, so, okay, just a second, please.
Yes, I'm able to see me. Yep.
Okay. So, welcome everyone to today's masterclass on tendering and procurement management for metro and mainline railways. And we have with us Mr. Ravi Prakash, uh, who has been ex-director with Thales India and ex-country head Siemens Rail India. So we welcome you, sir, to this
Thank you.
masterclass. And thank you so much for taking out your precious time to impart knowledge and your experience, learnings from your experience to our uh, rail professionals community. Thank you so much. And without taking much time, I'll quickly cover a few slides on our introduction. And we've got certain announcements to make, which I'll do it, and then we'll commence with the masterclass. So for those who are attending our masterclass for the first time, I would like to briefly introduce what Railway Academy is. So we are a railways and smart mobility focused training company, and we have we offer a virtual academy for rail professionals who want to advance in their career. Uh, We have around 50 plus courses across railway signaling, railway electrification operations, rams and rail safety, rail management, metro and high-speed rail technologies, and also IRSC module exam preparations. These are the list of courses. The exhaustive list and details of these courses are available onto our website. You could visit and check them out. The recording of today's session will be available onto our YouTube channel and also would be shared uh, would also be shared onto our LinkedIn page. So uh, we would be we would request you to please follow those social media handles and so that you could get the recording as well as notifications for future webinars. Uh, Additionally, a few important information related to webinar. If you have queries during the session, please type your queries or ask your queries in the chat box. I will take them up at the appropriate intervals or towards the end of the session. Once Ravi Prakash sir's presentation is complete, we'll take open the house for Q&A and we'll take them out. We may take a 5-minute break at 8 p.m. subject to Ravi Prakash sir's interest. And the presentation shall be followed by a Q&A session, and recording of this session will be available on our Railway Academy YouTube channel. So if you have any queries after the session, you could contact us on inquiry@Railway Academy, and you can also call us or contact us on WhatsApp. We'll be happy to address your queries. Before we commence, we'd like to also share one news with you, which is on we are looking at starting a course program, a 12-hour course program on tendering and procurement management for mainline railways. We'll share this information in detail with you on your email ID. It's a 12-hour program with 1 hour per session. And the objective is to impart knowledge on tendering and procurement processes to metros and mainline railways. So these are 12 sessions. I'll take them up later in the presentation, but you can have a glance on this. I'll be, once the presentation of Ravi Prakash sir is complete, I'll take you through the detailed session outlines. It covers tendering, procurement planning, tendering process, supplier pre-qualification, contract management, e-procurement, bid evaluation, procurement for specialized rail systems, risk management, legal and regulatory framework, and also will be covering global best practices and case studies. So I'll take you through all the course outlines. I'm just giving you a glance of it. So what all we'll be covering in this course outline across various sessions. We'll be looking at, there are certain basic uh, attractions we have designed for you to take maximum benefit from this course program. And now I would like to welcome sir to start the session. Welcome, sir. Kindly share your presentation so that.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to you on this Sunday evening. It's quite a surprise that there are so many participants on a weekend, on a Sunday. Yes, the subject of today's discussion must be quite interesting because at the end of the day, that is the one which gives you or doesn't give you the business. So today I will share with you some of my experiences, but at the same time, when I start my talk or when I give some slides, there will always be some sort of fundamentals. Okay. Can you see my screen now? I want to share. Yes, share my. Okay. Yep. I guess you are able to see now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see
Yeah.
the.
Okay. Oh, just one more minute. I move this sideways and make it full screen. Okay. So I always like my presentations to start with this particular slide of both the main line and the metro line. Because when you work for a rail industry, there are many people who talk to us and say that I'm an expert in mainline and I don't know anything about metro lines. And someone else will say that I'm a master in the metros, but I don't know anything about the mainline. At the end of the day, yes, the technologies and the applications are, though not exactly similar, uh, but at the end of the day, they are all railway systems. So we all have to ensure that our both eyes focus on these two areas. So if you have some knowledge on the railway system and if you are trying to get that knowledge, posted onto the metro, then it's good. You are opening up a big avenue for others to understand how the mainline systems work, whether it is the complete technical engineering design process or even a techno-commercial process like what we are talking today. So today, our main topic on the masterclass in the masterclass is the procurement and tendering for railway projects. So when I say railway, as I said, both metros and mainline. The important aspect here is that majority of us, maybe I think even the participants today, I like to understand that majority would have been technical guys, mechanical engineers, electronics, civil engineers, and electrical engineers working in signaling, telecom, all these fields, rolling stock. So now their focus is always on the technical aspects of a project. When you are trying to grow in the organization, of course, most of you must be having an ambition to grow into higher levels. At one point of time, that technical portion comes down and your non-technical or the commercial or the human resource, all these areas become important and they become bigger and bigger in terms of focus. So as you reach the top of the organization, when you become a top manager in the organization, you spend much lesser time on the technicalities, but spend more time on the processes, on the procurement systems, and on human resource, the growth, business growth. So all these things, the financial aspects, everything becomes important. So for all of us who are in the lower level and the middle level of the management, of course, I see there are few people who are already into the senior management. But yeah, this could be a little bit of a repetition. But I say that for everyone, once you go back to your basics and understand why we have to be a little bit more techno-commercial rather than being purely technical. So I go to the basics in terms of the procurement. What is procurement? Why do you do all this procurement in all the rail projects? So most of you will understand or you may know that these are the large infrastructure projects, mainly for the usage of public, the general public. So you may also be part of the general public. So you may be a supplier or you may be a provider of the system coming from one of the railways or metro companies or a metro operator. But at the same time, you may also be a general user. So at the end of the day, the customer, the end user is always in the focus. You have to ensure that whatever you are doing is to the benefit of those guys. So the one of the important parameters, I think my earlier masterclass on railway and all that, I always used to talk about the four important aspects for a customer. He needs his travel from place A to place B in a very safe way, very comfortable way, very economic way, and finally it should be you should be able to take him as quickly as possible. I don't want to use the word fastest way, as quickly as possible. So speed, quality in terms of safety, and then you come to comfort, and then the economics. These are all the four important requirements of the end user or the traveler. So one of the parts of an organization, whether you are a customer or whether you are a supplier in this particular area, because I see the audience majority would have been from the supplying companies, but there are quite a good number of people even from the operating railways. So it's very important for both of you to ensure that you both have one customer above you, that is the user. And whatever you are going to give him in terms of comfort, speed, and safety, as long as it is also economical, then you are giving value to that customer. If you don't give that economics to him, then however good your product may be, however safe, however quick, still the customer doesn't get attracted. So one of the important things is how efficient is your purchase process, your costing process, etc. We all know that these are the statistics available on various projects in India over the last 3 decades. I would use the word 3 decades because majority of the modern projects started in India with Delhi Metro way back in 2000. So almost 25 years. So we talk about in the last 2.5 decades, the project costs are generally going down. Okay, they're not going up. They are becoming efficient. We should all accept that. Compared to what is the earlier rate per kilometer when you are building a line, now things are improving. But this is not enough. Even to this day, our procurement costs, if you look at it, the procurement cost is how to manage the procurement process in terms of manpower, in terms of documentation, in terms of calling the various suppliers and doing the process of evaluation, everything all put together, it is the cost that is coming to 3 to 4% of the total project. These are the statistics available everywhere, mainly pertaining to India. But the global benchmark is 1%. We all have to achieve this 1% mark. It is subject to a debate, whether it is 1% or 1.5%. Uh, there are a lot of people saying that no, it cannot be 2%, 1%. It can be only in the range of 2.5 to 3%. However, yes, if we have a good target like 1%, that would be very good. We should be able to reduce the procurement cost through an efficient way of managing things. So the big advantage when you are reducing the costs is that you have many more bidders coming in and they join. So once you have more bidders, naturally there is a better competition around, and you have with a very good process, you are able to cut the red tape. So you will be able to complete the tender process much faster. Earlier days, we used to talk about tender processes taking months together, 6 months, 8 months. But I could definitely see in the last 25 years, definitely the tenders have been much faster when it comes to processing and awarding. From the day of calling the tender to awarding the tender, things have certainly improved. The money that you are saving, the resources that you are saving can be diverted or can be focused on actual project delivery. All these things like your tendering process, they ultimately don't mean anything to the end user. The end user say, when am I going to see the train? When am I going to get into the train and travel from place A to place B? So this is important for my end user or your end user or anybody's. So cost savings to all the stakeholders here. I always put the customer. Customer is in this case the rail operator, and then the tenderer who is a supplier. Then infrastructure users are basically your commuters who travel on the train, and finally the taxpayers also. And ultimately, a system is being built. You have the taxpayers' money being spent by the governments. So we have to ensure that the cost saving is done. So this is the basic focus of the entire process. So I'm taking a little bit time in this introduction because I want to emphasize on why it is very important that we have to ensure that the cost will be as efficient as possible. I'm not saying it should be the cheapest, but it should be as efficiently reduced as possible. Now coming to our area, so there are few global players also here, but I would today focus on mainly on the Indian scenario, both Indian railways as well as the Indian metro projects. So there are so many commonalities, but there is also some sort of differences in both the areas, and we have to expect them. They can't be same. But one important aspect is that the procurement of goods, works, and services for these projects is similar to large public organizations. Like most of the government of India organizations, you can say oil industry, you can say huge stainless steel, iron and steel industries, they also follow more or less a similar process. So the procurement process is controlled by mainly the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and then other subsequent ministries like Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for metros. So all these people, at the end of the day, they take it from the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Industry and Commerce as well. So the procurement is something which is across the domains, across the industries, and yeah, all these people have to be utilized, properly. Procurement involves, as you said, four important processes. You have to start with planning. Without planning, there can't be anything. Then your sourcing is the main activity, which we also use the word tendering. The exact word tendering comes basically from the word sourcing. And then comes the contracting and managing. This is for the whole project. The entire project has all these four steps, and similarly procurement also has these four steps. So planning is how to identify the project requirements and the solutions, and you have to have your estimates. So when I say all these things, this is all from the customer side, from Indian Railways or from a typical metro like a Bangalore metro or Hyderabad metro or any other metro in India. So these people do the planning first. Their activity starts much before a tender is in the market. So they will start identifying what their project requirements are, what are the solutions that they are trying to implement, and the project cost estimates. Cost estimate plays a very, very important role. They have to take care of all the raw material cost in case of civil works and all that. And in case of rolling stock, they should know what are the previous costs, the last accepted rates, as well as the general costs available in the market. Similarly, signaling and telecom, AFCs and electrical systems. So everything is available in the market, and they have to find out and create their cost estimates, which are as reasonably accurate as possible. Then comes the sourcing, where you have your identification of suitable bidders. The bidders could be through your approved process. We all know for Indian Railways, there is something called as an RDSO approval. So most of the companies will be pre-approved. Only those people who are approved will be allowed to participate in the various tenders and contracts. But for metro industry, it is not similar. There is a sort of a pre-qualification which every tender will have to go through. And once this pre-qualification process is successful, then they are allowed to participate in a tender. So preparation of tender, generally the contracts are of two types, lump sum contracts and measurement contracts. We will come to them a little later. And so you have to prepare those tender documents, either with your own in-house sources, or nowadays in the metro industry, you have a lot of consultants, general consultants are appointed to do this type of activity. So they prepare the tenders, and once your tenders are validated, checked, and certified, then they are ready for public display. Till then, that the tenders are not generally shown to outside people, including subcontractors or the contractors who are interested in supplying the goods and services. Then comes the calling of tenders. Once the calling of tenders happen, everyone gets to know that there is a opportunity here. And of course, after that, they participate in the tenders, and then the tender evaluation is a process which the customer will have to do it. In between activity is all done by the suppliers. Okay. Between the calling of tenders and tender evaluation, it is the ball has shifted to their court. So they have to do the bid management themselves. We will come to that at the end of the presentation. I have few slides on that. Then comes again both these parties coming face to face, contracting, negotiation with the bidders, award of LOA, letter of acceptance, and signing of contract. So contracting comes to that culminating point with both the parties agreeing to do the work together, and then they sign the contract. After that, it is only the delivery, deployment of the project. We have to, as a customer, it is the responsibility of the customer to ensure that contractor's performance is exactly as per the contract. So if your contract is a tightly, very beautifully written and documented and signed, then you should not have any problem. You should be able to manage the contractor's performance as per the contract. Of course, responsibilities are on both sides. From the customer side, they have to ensure that they are providing the right of way, they are providing the delivery, the site readiness in terms of documentation, in terms of the site. So everything they have to do, and only then the contractor can come and start the work over there. So this is a joint activity. You cannot say that somebody is big and somebody is small. So everyone has to work together in tandem to deliver the solution as per the contract. So when we talk about all these activities, we little bit inside the sourcing. I only elaborated them little. What exactly is calling of tenders, and it involves notice inviting tender. And here there could be open tenders or there could be restricted tenders. This is only small change in this. When you say an open tender, it is a global open tender, we also call it, and it is open to all the players, whether they are already pre-approved or not pre-approved. Yeah, they are well-known people all over the world or maybe within India. They can participate, and as long as they meet the first qualifying criteria, they are allowed to put the bid. And in these cases, there will always be a process of pre-qualifying those vendors with their technical documentation or technical submission. So once they submit the documents, then they automatically will be evaluated, and then they are pre-qualified, and only then they will be asked to give the price. So that is the only change. Once that is done, you have a restricted tender where you give the tender only to the guys who are pre-qualified. Otherwise, there could be some cases where in an open tender itself, you don't pre-qualify them in the first place. Everybody is ready. Everybody is capable because you have done some sort of a pre-approval, and then you open their technical bid as well as their price bid, and then decide who is the winner or who is the lowest bidder. So we normally also have one activity called arranging a pre-bid meeting. From the customer's point of view, I tell you that the customer's responsibility is to ensure that they always invite the potential bidders for a pre-bid meeting. And in this pre-bid meeting, they have to ensure that they take the queries and address them or resolve them suitably. This was a big challenge in the earlier days when the tender document. I think even now I see that many of the tender documents, people just prepare from a previous experience. I don't like to use the word cut and paste, but many of them are like that. And in such cases, some of the suppliers would become very tense, and these people keep on pushing those queries back and forth, and then the customer also gets a little bit restless, and they say that, oh, no, it's okay, you refer to the same clause again. Okay, that is applicable. So uh, if only the supplier is capable of seeing the same old clause and saying that yes, this is as clear as a crystal, I can participate, then he would not have asked that query. So when they are coming out with a query, from the customer's point of view, we have to ensure that all customers, I'm telling this because I'm also a customer now. So we always ensure that the queries are suitably addressed and suitably resolved. That is very important. Otherwise, you are pushing them away from participating because the first requirement is you wanted more bidders. Now, when you don't give them the proper resolution, they will stay away from the projects. Tender evaluation is once the bidder is already there with you. He has already shown interest. They have already participated in the tender. So that itself is a 50% success. When somebody has participated in your bid, the customer should be very, very pleased that there are people who are showing interest in our. They should not think we are doing a favor. So tender evaluation becomes a very complex and a challenging state, because that's very important in terms of identifying who is the right contractor or a supplier to do that project, because these projects are very, very strategic for the country, very, very important for the economic growth of the country, and they are large scale. They are not small projects. They all run into thousands and thousands of crores of rupees. So they require, when the evaluation is being done, that it should not be a very ill prepared or ill documented evaluation process. The tender evaluation process plays a very, very important role in the whole process of tendering. It's very important for a customer to ensure that they have a proper planning done. So this is a planning within the planning. They have already planned their project, they have already planned the solution, they have already planned their cost estimates, everything, and they made the tenders. But at the end of the day, if they are not planning their evaluation process properly, the whole thing falls flat. So the tender evaluation plan is a very, very important document. In fact, we used to always say that the old age saying that if you want to cut a tree, 60% of the time you prepare for polishing or grinding the axe, keeping it ready, and only the remaining 40% is to just chop the tree. Or now that 60-40 has even changed to 70-30, I think. Get your axe ready, get your entire process properly planned and ready. Do a proper planning, and then your delivery becomes easy. So here also, the tender evaluation, you should understand exactly what are your objectives and scope. Why you are doing this evaluation? What exactly are you going to look forward? And then what are the criteria and how transparent it is? Your evaluation should not be secretive. The more it becomes secretive, then you are keeping away your suppliers. So don't keep it as a secret process. Let it be as transparent as possible. Your methodology, how you are evaluating. Then your roles and responsibilities within the organization. But this is again not anything to do with the contractor or supplier. It is basically in your customer organization, who is doing what. Is everybody authorized to collect the documents? Is everybody authorized to go through and keep writing notes after notes below and above the tender document? No. You have to ensure that there is a crystal clear procurement organization within your team. Without a procurement organization or a procurement cell, your organization doesn't, do this work properly. So get your tender evaluation done through a proper roles and responsibilities defined and with vigorous documentation. Each word, what I mentioned, has been given by various experts and various international organizations. So they are all very, very important. So you start with preparing a beautiful document, a perfect tender evaluation plan, and then in that plan, you include all these things. And at the end of the day, your 60 to 70% of the work is internal, you have done it. Then execute it, do the tender evaluation. You are bound to get a good result at the end of the day. All right. So these are the basics from the customer point of view, or from who is releasing the tender or issuing the tender. These are all the requirements of somebody who is preparing the tenders and issuing. Okay. How do I go to the second? Yeah. A bit of explanation. I think this we can skip, I guess, because this, I think once you get your presentation, you can read. Generally, there are two types of contracts, large contracts or small contracts, whatever we call. Lump sum is one, where the whole amount is on the basis of you deliver the whole system or whole solution, and after the completion of the work, you take your money. Of course, you take the money in gradual manner, not exactly in a one single go. Nobody does that. So in lump sum contracts, interim payments play an important role. So you actually pay to the contractor or to the supplier on the basis of the progress of work actually done. So many people in the customer side, they may think that once I have given the contract, now I can close my eyes and relax. No, it's not like that, because they should know what exactly is the work in progress and what is actually the progress of work. Both are important. So the progress of work is exactly the percentage of how much work has been completed. And work in progress is how much is already put on the project. It is now working. It is, in another few days, that will be a completed work completed. So it is like a nice funnel, pushing the input and taking it towards the output. So all these things are important in managing a lump sum contract. As I mentioned, the whole scope of work in terms of the lump sum contract could be design, build, everything, or just build. We are not going into the individual details. What is this? What is that? Whether you are doing a design or build, or design build only because the customer gives you all the drawings, you just build as it is. Both can be in lump sum contract, or it can be partially design and build. Something can be on fully built. So these are all the combinations. But yes, these are the jobs that involves customer to monitor at each stage what is the work in progress and the work that has already been done, and then make the payments suitably. And I can tell you, even after 25 years, Delhi Metro has been one of the best examples in India when it came to proper project management from the customer side and proper delivery organization from all the suppliers. And that's the reason the project was delivered ahead of time and within the budget, or even less than the budget. After that, I have not seen any project done both the things. There are projects which have successfully being executed in a lesser time, but they little bit ran out of their budgeted cost. Delhi first one was a big success. That's why even today we all talk about Delhi Metro as a big case study. Anyway, we go into the other type of contract that is called the measurement contracts. In India, fortunately, I think we don't do much of the measurement contracts. I worked in the United Kingdom many years ago, and in UK, this was a practice. Generally, what happens is when the customer is not very, I don't say very clear, but the scope of work itself becomes a little bit ambiguous. There are so many things that will come, whether it is in terms of quantities, or whether it is in terms of scope, or whether it is in terms of resources required. Things keep changing, and then things keep getting added and then deleted. So in such situation, they say that, okay, let us have a measurement contract. On the basis of the work done, you get paid. So it is on the basis of monthly bills or quarterly bills, the contractor gets paid. So this is another type of contract, not very popular these days, but yes, in the olden days, this used to be the norm of the day. So these are the two areas of work, that two types of contracts, for which again the tendering process is same. The sourcing process, the planning, everything has to be done, except that in the contract stage, you have a slight difference, and then in the delivery of the project, there is a difference. Okay. In a typical tender, this is just a simple flow chart. I'll take hardly few seconds on this. Whatever I spoke, they are all in this form of a flow chart. So you prepare the specifications, you prepare your tender document, you advertise and sell a tender document. Then, so you see the first blue color ones are all the responsibility of the customer, the tender, or the organization that wants to issue the tender. Then the yellow ones, the one that comes with the contractor or supplier scope. The green is a joint responsibility. So that we will come to that. So preparation and submission of the tender documents is purely the responsibility of the supplier. Then the tender has to be opened and evaluated, and then there has to be, okay, I did not put so many other things like negotiations and all that, where there will be uh, uh, dual action, but immediately after that, the contract award, and then comes the contract preparation, and this is where both sit together and they make the contract document, and then they sign the contract, which again needs both the hands to clap and shake hand together. And then comes the performance of contract. Here I put it in the light yellow. I would say majority of the responsibility lies with the supplier, though the customer also has to give the supporting hand. Without that, projects cannot be delivered with the utmost or the best performance. We go a little bit more into the sourcing and the tendering process, though I was telling them orally and the earlier slides also. A little bit more into the details. If you look at it in the advertisement and the requirement stage, you have the e-tendering portals or official journals and websites, trade publications. These are all the various media on through which the customer would like to advertise and tell to the whole world that I am interested to procure some items, or I want to execute this particular project or deploy this project. So then comes the pre-qualification stage. I put this specifically here, keeping in my view the uh, open tenders where, particularly in the metros, who don't have already an approved vendor. The selection stage may be carried out separately to have an approved vendor or through a pre-qualification process. And in that pre-qualification stage, you have the bidders who are requested to provide information about their business, which we many times use the word technical bid. It is not just the technical alone. We talk about the customer's capability, we talk about the customer's capacity in terms of doing things in their premises, and the experience, the relevant experience. All these things are very important. So to get their minimum criteria, they have to pass that threshold. Only then we as a customers, we get the confidence to give them the contract or to at least pre-qualify them. If somebody may be very good, but they don't have the capacity today, they can produce around 500 trains and the rolling stock, and already they have 800 orders. So where is the question of delivering? They don't have plans to establish another plant. So all these things, if they don't convince you, so there is a very difficult situation for you to approve that particular supplier through a pre-qualification process. So you have to be very clear, and if at all you are not going to accept them as pre-qualified, you will tell them why. Again, as I said, transparency, that's very important. So you have to pre-qualify them through various processes. Now there are processes which we call it as QCBS process also, which is quality cost based evaluation. So these are the different things. You give weightage to their technical capability, you give some weightage to their experience, you give technical weightage to their financial capabilities. So they should have enough money to deliver that particular project. They have to invest upfront. Everything cannot be from the customer side. So all these things play an important role in your pre-qualification. So after they get through that, then they go to the next step called as a request for price or request for quotation, whatever name we call it, ITT, invitation. Rail industry, unfortunately, has got too many jargons and people keep using these terms. I tried my best to avoid using jargons, and our abbreviations, acronyms are expanded. So in all this pre-qualification stage, it all depends on how efficiently you are able to cut short the time. That is important. Again, remember the first slide which said cost. If you are able to do things quickly and to the satisfaction of all the bidders or the potential bidders. See, it is very easy to satisfy a guy who is qualified, right? It is very difficult to satisfy a guy who is disqualified. If you are not qualifying, you should be even more accurate and convincing and transparent in your system. You should be able to tell why you have disqualified them, why you did not pre-qualify. So that is why I use the word, don't keep it secretive. As much as possible, be open. So we have still long way to go in India, I guess. We still don't do that. Coming to the next step in the invitation to tender, once the tenders are given, so it can be, again, as I'm using these words again and again, open tender to all suppliers are restricted to pre-qualified only. So in these, the tender document more or less are becoming nowadays standardized. And these standardization is generally controlled globally. Globally, I'm using the word very carefully, through organizations like FIDIC. We come to that little later. We just take one example of that also. These are the organizations or associations which have created the standardization of documents, standardization of a tender document. Instructions to tenders have to be given in a certain way. Specifications have to be mentioned about what is the scope of work. Then there is something called as a pricing schedule. And most important, all of us who did tenders and contracts, we know there is GCC and SCC, as we call them, general conditions of contract and specific conditions of contract. Very, very important general things which nobody can overlook and move out. We keep them in general conditions of contract. But every project is unique in itself. So try to keep those requirements, whether it is technical or whether it is commercial or whether it is combined of both or whether it is, timelines, whatever it is, whatever is little unique in your project, put it in the specific or the particular conditions of contract. Either it is called PCC, particular conditions, or it is called as SCC, specific conditions of the contract. So in these things, clearly the relationship between the customer and the supplier will have to be defined. Without properly writing all those things, see, many people, I have seen myself in my organization, my own bid manager was not even looking at many of the pages. And many times, as the leader of the company, I was the managing director. So I told them, did you read the whole tender document from the first line to the last line? If I ask this question, I think even today, 90% of the people would say, no, I did not read. And even when I ask the same question now as a person sitting on the other side of the bench, now I am on the customer side, again, there also, people write the documents and then they would not have read that particular document. This happens, so sadly. But anyway, we have to change. We have to improve further. And when we are writing our general conditions and special conditions, you have to ensure that the relationship is very, very clear. Each and every sentence is very important. There are people who get scared and run away from participating in a bid just because of one particular wrongly worded sentence. Okay. Tender evaluation, I already talked a lot about that, how we intend to evaluate the submission, and support documentation, which is all required in a tender. So generally, a tender document will insist on all these individual chapters. This is not full. There could be so many other things. One or two I deliberately or I missed them. I did not include them. But majority will have all these things. Okay. Further, the next stages are, as I said again, evaluation of tender submissions. The tender submission is done by the potential bidders, and it is a crucial step, as I told you, evaluation, and well-conducted tender evaluation will lead to an optimal outcome. We want the best of the outcome. I'm not saying, but this is the best of all. I'm not saying the best. It is an optimum. In that particular situation, that is the best. Maybe somebody else could come out with a better solution, but in that particular situation, we have come out with a best outcome for that particular situation. Value for money and customer satisfaction. These are the things that you end up getting for a project. And naturally, when you are doing a poor evaluation, there will be suboptimal outcomes. Outcomes are not efficient. You have legal and reputational risks and all that. So these things do happen. We have seen in many projects it's happening also. So the tender evaluation panel or the team, they have to conduct a fair, robust, efficient, stepwise evaluation. These three are very, very important. You should be fair. It should be a robust process. Nobody can claim fault on that. And it should be efficient. So, as I said, we have to write the objectives, the criteria, the methods. I expanded them with various questions. You should always ask. We say that whenever you start a project or a task, there are 5 W's and 1 H. When, what, where, who, and why. These are the 5 W's that are very important. You should be always asking these questions. What are the requirements? Why I am doing this? Who is doing it? When I have to deliver this or do it? So these are all very, very important questions, the 5 W's. And 1 H is how I am going. So for every activity, whether it is in evaluating the objectives, evaluating criteria and the methods, the team, the timeline, everywhere you should have all these W's and how H's addressed. And proper documentation at the end, you make it. And with that documentation, you are ready to do a thorough, efficient, fair evaluation. After all these processes, then comes the award. Of course, you have to, at the end of the day, the purpose of doing all this work is to award the contract. I have seen some people coming up to that stage and then canceling the whole tender. How much of waste, Every discharge of tender, I am telling you, is a sign of the inefficient customer organization. I don't blame the suppliers. If today a tender is discharged or cancelled for any reason, I always say the responsibility should be from the customer side. I tell this with hand on my heart. But yes, that is important. The customer role is very important to ensure that the task that is on their hand was to deliver, execute a project with a contract. So they should reach that milestone. They should deliver the contract or award that contract. So once they deliver the contract or sign the contract, they should also inform. Ideally, some countries do that. They inform all the people who have not been chosen, and they will give them the details on how they evaluated them and how they decided that, they were not chosen. I used to do that in my organization when I recruited manpower. When somebody is not recruited, I used to explain that person why I have not taken him. It is not because that he or she was not, good. It is that for that particular position, we could not. He is a right person in a wrong position. That is exactly I used to use the word. Same thing here. Maybe some tenderers or bidders would have been very good, but somehow they missed out. So we should be able to tell in a fair and efficient way why they have been, not selected. Then the decision in the form of LOA, this is very common. Most of the time we give LOA or LOI, letter of intent. Then comes the letter of award, and then finally the contract is signed. That's how the whole process goes through. So some of the people must be very keen on knowing, are we doing in an internationally accepted way? Or are there any things that, we have our own way? Between the two agencies that deliver the projects in India, one is Indian Railway, another one is the metro rail and all that, which comes under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. I would keep these two as the top organizations who actually, they prepare the policies, they ensure that these are cascaded down to the various levels of execution, right? So in this, the two names normally we come very often, we hear one is the FIDIC word, the second one is Make in India or Atmanirbhar and all these names. So I want to just give a little bit of an introduction or a few words on them, because these two that by themselves are a huge subject. If you want to master the FIDIC, then you have to, maybe Sumit will know that there can be a special course on that itself, which will run into many months. So similarly, if you want to understand what Make in India concepts are, Make in India policies, so you have to do a lot of work and study on that. Uh, Generally, people use the word FEDIC. Of course, it is a French acronym of Federation of Engineers, International Consulting Engineers. And they have created various contracts, different types of books, the procurement to be done, and for a civil engineering and basically the construction contracts, they created what is known as a red book. And they created a book called Pink Book for electrical, mechanical uh, systems. So similarly, Orange Book, Golden Book. Now a lot of other things have been introduced by them. This is a very old organization, 1993, sorry, 1903 is the time when they formed this FIDIC organization. But majority of their developments in terms of tender management and procure management they have started coming after 1990s, and now in the after the century 2000, there are many new developments and many additions to improve the conditions. There is always the conditions like the general conditions and special conditions, so which are uh, laid out by the FIDIC also, that they advise. They are not hard and fast that you have to implement them, but they are more like guidelines. They tell the customer, suppose let us say we have Vijayawada Railway or Hyderabad Metro or any railway project. Uh, so when they go for a project, the FIDIC will give these books which are available across the globe. So they say that use these conditions, these guidelines, and prepare your GCC and prepare your SCC, special conditions and all that. And your specifications and drawings have to be included in your tender document, in your contract, and ensure that they are all available. See, this is very important. If your specifications are not clear, then or your requirements are not clear, then how can you tell the customer you build and design and operate, even if it is a build and design and operate contract? So you can't just tell the customer that, build a metro railway for me. That's all. I want a metro railway. I don't want to tell you anything. I don't tell you the specifications at all. Then it won't work. So you have to give your specs and you have to give your drawings as reasonably as possible to the clearest manner. Then there should be a letter of tender. At the end of the day, whenever you are issuing a tender, these are all proper documentation. You can't orally issue a tender. There has to be a letter. Of course, we all agree with that. And contract agreement with other documents listed in the letter of acceptance. So at every point, the supplier and the customer should agree. Without the agreement, we cannot assume that, oh, the contractor has agreed. If he has agreed with a letter, in many tenders I have seen this, they say noted. And later on they said, oh, no, I mentioned noted, but I did not say complied or agreed. So many of the customers insist that please mention in response to the tender, you are mentioning the word agreed or complied. Don't just say noted. Noted doesn't mean agreed. So these are the requirements that are more or less crystal clear manner. in FIDIC contracts. And they also have a golden principles. FIDIC always ensures equality. Here, these are the equal partners doing that project, deploying the project, because they are all working towards the end user, that is you and me. At the end of the day, we are the commuters. So you have duties and rights in alignment with the general conditions to maintain integrity of each entity's contribution. Very, very essential. Everybody has got their own duties and they have their rights. So somebody was telling me the other day that after FIDIC came in, the suppliers have started, to twisting their arms. Customers are a little bit in a bad shape. I don't agree with that. Customers have to be perfect. Customer does not mean that I have given you the contract over. Now, you deliver whatever I say. No, it's not whatever I say. Whatever I have mentioned in the contract, only that. So the rights of the supplier, rights of the contractor, rights of the employer, both become equally paramount. So each one have to maintain that integrity of the contribution of the other party. Clarity in specific conditions in an unambiguous manner. There has to be no ambiguity. In fact, today evening I was talking to somebody in one of the projects. I was asked to supply the printer and the computer inside the station master's room as a part of the entire signaling equipment outside, interlocking plus track circuits, everything. At the end of the day, they said you did not supply the table. So I said, nowhere there is a mention of the table. They said, if you are supplying me a computer and a printer, where will I keep the equipment? I have to keep it on a table. So implicitly, I mentioned that you have to buy a table and put it to me. Now, this is a question of ambiguity. At the end of the day, we made a table. Somebody delivered my contractor for doing the field work or installation work. He got some Godrej table, a minimum one. Then came the specification. They said, no, 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 the table should be like this. It should be made of teak wood. It should have 3 drawers on the right and 3 drawers on the left, blah, 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 and all that. So then the table became as expensive as, the computer itself. Okay, what we did at the end is a different story. I am not going to talk about that. But then, that sort of ambiguity should not be there. If you need a table, you better tell that I want the table along with the computer and the printer. And then you also mention that you can, put your cost to it. I am ready to pay for that. So at the end of the day, we had to, if somebody as a supplier is quoting, he will quote for it. Right? So then very important thing is the balance in terms of risk and reward. Both sides. It has to be balanced to avoid disputes. There has to be a very, very clear risk and reward for both sides. It cannot be the entire risk taken by the supplier and reward will go to the employer. No, or the other way. Customer cannot take the entire risk and supplier cannot say, oh, it's your problem. It has to be established properly. What exactly is the risk and the reward and how it is properly balanced. Obligations to be fulfilled pertaining to the time frames. Most of the projects have this issue. Time frames could be of any reason. Majority of the times, the customer would not be in a position to deliver the site or the station building or whatever it is, the room. Then the supplier jumps up and says, no, 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 you did not give me. So I'm not going to meet the time frame. But yes, there has to be a sort of an obligation from both sides. Ensure that it is given in your contract, mentioned in the contract, that there could be a slip, a little bit of a slip. And the supplier has to evaluate what could be that particular risk of slipping the timeline and take the cost to it. We are not saying don't take the cost, but during the course of the contract, don't stop the whole project and say that, no, 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 now you have delayed. So I don't want. So these are all the areas where the FIDIC tries to keep both the players. It's like a referee, in a boxing match. There is no advantage given to somebody and disadvantage given to the other. So both should be on the equal platform, equal footing to play. So level playing field, we call it, and this has to be provided. So even with all these things, at the end of the day, if at all there is a dispute, so let the dispute be resolved at a operational levels. Efficient and fair resolution has to happen there itself. Don't go to arbitration, don't go to courts and all that. So this is another important thing from both sides. The ego is the one which takes both the people to arbitrations or to the judicial departments. Not required. Most of the projects can be done at this stage. Of course, these are all the ideal cases. It's very nice to say all the ideal situations. But having said that, it would be in the best interest of the project, best interest of the end user, that FIDIC has given these golden principles as well as their different colored books to ensure that the advantage is given to both sides. The risk again is on both sides. So there is a level playing field. So we should not start with the feeling that there is a disadvantage. Make in India is the recent ones. Again, this Make in India also is an initiative. It started in the metro. Again, Delhi Metro was the first big example that people would like to take. And they were the first who could push this across. And with that, the guidelines given by them, those days it was Ministry of Urban Development, MOUD, later on became Housing and Urban Affairs, MOHUA. They have started working on the metro policy. They have started working on the guidelines on first is standardization. See, when you say that I want to do Make in India, but you can't have 100 different systems, then nobody will be happy doing it in India. So you have to ensure that as much as possible, do a standardization. Of course, every project has got its own tailoring requirements. That is important also. But at least 75% should be standardized. So there should be the standardization first, and then you say that, okay, guys, now the total requirement in the whole country is quite huge because everything is standard, whether you supply in Delhi or Bangalore or Chennai or any place. So now you deliver the systems. So then you manufacture them in India. Then your Make in India makes sense. So following the standardization, then MOHUA has issued directions. So the first part of it, they did their job well. Now the second part is they have issued directions to all the employers here, the customers, and also to the suppliers. Both were again given equally the importance. They said you guys have to ensure that localization content is maintained in your delivery. So local content in civil works has been identified. I think more or less I am giving some figures. This was issued in 2020 or 2019, if I am right. But then they gave every year how it has to increase. I think if I am right, the current figure in 2024, I believe if there is a new project given now, civil work should be at least 85% local content. You have to manufacture most of the things using the local content. Rolling stock also, 75% of the manufacturing should happen in India. And with more of the parts being, of course, there are still some parts that you are importing, but they are delivered through a local distributor, and then it comes to the local manufacturing or assembly entity, which will at least ensure 75% is done. There are a bit of loopholes in all these things, I can understand. But yeah, one of the most important component of rolling stock being the propulsion system. So they are still struggling to get a proper propulsion system manufacturer in India who can manufacture. And similarly, SNT, signaling telecom, these are also made 50%. I think electrical, I skipped here. That is also around 50%. So these are all the mandatory requirements made by the MOHUA under their guidelines. And MOHUA can give only guidelines, but it is ultimately the employer or the customer who will make it implemented in their procurement process. The PLI schemes, many industries would be aware of this. Uh, Basically, it is like an incentive, productivity linked incentive. You do a good number of jobs, you show that in India we can produce more number of products here in India. We can also be a manufacturing hub for the world. So once you do that, then most of the multinational companies also come to India to manufacture or produce the product here and see that they can be exported back. So these are all the things which will help in a self-reliant ecosystem to be created. 25 years back, when we all started as heads of those multinational companies, we were like, completely in dark, and we struggled. All of us struggled. And but today, the present generation, the present top management has got that sort of clarity, as well as the support from the government as well as the customers. So they are able to do that in India in terms of manufacturing a very, very competitive product so that they can export it back to the world. Okay, so these are the two initiatives which I felt that they are very important. There are many other things that have come up. And by the way, when I use these things, though it started mainly in the metro segment or the mass transit segment, I am very happy to note that even in Indian railway projects, now FIDIC is becoming gradually pushed by few zonal railways, and Make in India is anyway there. Big example is Vande Bharat. So they have all come in a big way in taking up, these two initiatives, like implementing the FIDIC and also the mandating of Make in India. Okay. Till now, I was talking about how the customer's responsibility is here. Now, I'll take a little bit of time on, of course, there also in the earlier slides, also when I said it is a customer or employer responsibility, there are so many things which I made it very clear that even the suppliers have the responsibility. But here, many people inside the supply organization or a contracting organization will want to know how the process will be worked. So in terms of a simple flow chart, the first mark is your pre-bid area. At that stage itself, you have all the people who show interest. Every time a customer conducts a pre-bid meeting, there will be at least 30, 40 participants. Everyone would be gung-ho about the opportunity. They say, come on, we all will participate. So registering the opportunity is the start of the interest shown by the supplier. Then they make what is known as a capture plan. Means how I will win this contract. What should be my strategy? What should be my cost elements? What should be my solution that I have to offer? And how I can be better than the competition. All those things they brainstorm in their organizations, and they come with a capture plan. And after that, they take a call, which we call it as a gate. It's a decision-making gate, at which point they will say whether I bid or I don't bid. Bid, no bid. So if they don't bid, then the matter ends there. There is nothing that they will do. They will only have to do a post-mortem of why their capture plan did not give them the confidence. But yes, when it's a bid decision, they will go ahead and they have to prepare the plan proposal. They have to make all the tender documents, and they should have internally the kickoff meetings with the various departments and groups that are involved. It could be multi entities in case of joint ventures or a consortiums. So you have to have all those things forming of a consortium, because mostly these days tenders, when they are either because of the size or because of the type of solution, 2, 3 companies have to join together. Only then, they will be able to put up a proper proposal of a complete solution. So in that kickoff meeting, they all work on the proposal. Then they develop the proposal and submit. Once the ball goes out of your court, it's done. It's like a bow and arrow. You have released the arrow, gone. Now the decision is not yours. You can only accept or reject. when you get the contract. The next stage is all post-bid, not in your scope. But during that stage, the customer does the evaluation, and then they will come and give a contract to only one guy or maybe two guys. Very rarely they give to two guys, but that is also a case. There are cases where the contract is split into two winners and ultimately they give to both of them. And after that, during the post bid stage, the bid is over now. It has become a contract, and then whether you have won it or not, but there is a process that you have to ensure to do. There is an evaluation of that particular contract. If you have won, still you have to evaluate why you won that contract. Why did you win that particular? And what is the lesson that you have learned? So you have to do what is known as a debriefing within your organization, and you make your strategy on the basis of your winning or losing. If you have lost it, yes, you make a win strategy, and you have to ensure that why I lost this particular thing. You have to create a documentation of why you lost it. And if you win it also, you have to make a proper lessons learned and a document on why your strategy was a winning strategy and whether the same strategy will be applicable for future another tender, maybe or may not be. So all these things you have to do it in your internal groups within your organization. So we talk about some tips, having worked in various organizations myself and three large organizations, Alstom, Siemens, and Thales. So I summarized some of my learnings. I take a very less time because already we are at 8:15. And yeah, the most important thing is whenever you are preparing your bid, you have to bid with a intention to win. Very many people don't do that. Many companies, they just put a bid. But somewhere, in the minds of the bid manager, the guy will say that, I know that I will not win it. So even if you have that small sort of doubt, then you should not have crossed that gate of bid, no bid. If you have crossed the gate and if you say, I am bidding, so please work as if you are the winner. And you have to bid ahead of the competition. It's like a 100 meters dash. In terms of exceeding the customer's stated and unstated needs. I told you about the unambiguous situations. Though we are expecting the customer to be very, very clear, crystal clear in stating their requirements and needs, but still you may have to read between the lines and understand that, oh, maybe the customer did not state this. So my competitor may give this. I may not be able to give this. So all those things you have to do it. So give that. Another important thing which I myself learned from my past is avoid copying and pasting or cut and paste. Previous submissions are not a solution. Even if you have won a tender, it does not mean that if you just take the same things and put it in your current situation, no, you are not going to be sure that you will win. In spite of standardization, in spite of everything going in your way, because this customer is different from that customer. So keep your present customer in focus. He is the guy who is calling you for this tender. So what are their requirements? Don't look at your past, other one. So cut and paste. 90% don't do cut and paste. Prepare as if you are doing it for the first time. But yes, this is definitely adding to the cost. But how efficiently you want to do, you have to ensure. We used to call something as a reference library in my organization. I don't want to name it, but the reference library used to give a lot of the lessons learned as well as the previous submissions. But we take them and completely tailor it, and your response has to be fit for the purpose with a tailored response in the buyer's language. Please ensure that when you are quoting the customer, when he reads, he should not get a feeling that, oh, this is something exactly similar to the previous metro or previous railway project. So he should know that you have written it for his project. Then the customer also gets that confidence that you did a good job. Be open to forming a consortium with strategic partners for huge tenders or complex tenders. If it is not your strength, please don't do it. This is for a little bit of a senior managers. You should be courageous enough to say that I don't have this, capability. So I want to bring an expert who is another company. Many times it happens in signaling and telecom. Companies who are not having the competition, the knowledge of communication, telecom, they jumped into that and burnt their fingers. So let us not think of that. If there are communication or telecom experts, you bring them as partners and use them. Okay. Similarly, I'm talking of rolling stock people also. Don't think that everything, I can buy and do, I can be an integrator. No, it's not like that. Everything you can't do as an integrator. Be open to join or form a consortium. Undertake necessary due diligence, very important. And it is all available floating around. Market research is important. You have a marketing team in all your organizations. So why that particular tender has come, the purpose of that tender, and who is deciding, what is the criteria, all that strengths and weakness of your competitors, and your own SWOT, your own strengths and weaknesses. Okay. All these things you have to do it. And what is the best fit? So you are going to give that tender. This work is all very, very important, systematic. Use all your resources, your expertise, whatever you have, and the tools that you have, particularly in terms of costing. Okay, there are a lot of things available within the organization in terms of managing your costs by using the right tools. And then you ensure that if you are able to deliver the project in the right time, with the right deliverables, with the right owners, or who is doing the project, then automatically you are doing it efficiently and your cost is coming down. At the end of the day, we use it as a keep it short and simple. Don't write too many pages and pages of documentation. And it has to be jargon free. Okay, this is also very important. You may understand, but some of the customers, they may not understand what it means. So they will get confused. Ensure that client is convinced. See, you may say that I have the capacity, but that's not important. Your client or the customer should, get convinced. He should convince that. He should be convinced that you have the capacity to deliver. And at the end of the day, you have to give what is that differentiator that you are providing. The unique selling proposition. Your company has got something different, little bit different from other people. And your solution has got that little extra feature which will help them, but it doesn't cost you or cost the customer. So it is giving a benefit to the buyer in terms of efficiency, metric, saving, payback, whatever it is. If it is giving that benefit, you highlight that. Once you do that, yes, there is an advantage. See, many of the regenerative braking systems of rolling stock started with these. And many companies started taking advantage of that. They said that, okay, I can give 25%. Somebody said, no, I can give 30%, regenerative braking efficiency. So these are all the calculations that many companies used as key differentiators. And they ended up winning the project on that basis also. So validate your proposals at the time of tendering. Always call an outsider who is not involved in the project. Many times we say that since I wrote the tender document myself, it must be right. This is the ego that comes in their way. So the tendering manager or a bid manager or the bid engineers, they always think that because I did it, it must be right. Please come out of that mind. Always call somebody who did not do any work in that project. Ask him or her to go through all these things and validate it. So once they do the validation, then go ahead and submit. So these are the various steps or tips which will generally result in a good percentage of winning. At the end of the day, yeah, there are many competitors working in the field, and then there are only few customers. So there will be a cutthroat competition all over. But at the end of the day, you have to win. There are companies who could win continuously at a stretch by doing all these steps properly and by sticking to their winning strategy. Okay. So that brings end to my 1 hour 15 minutes of presentation. And so I come to the Q&A. I did not say specifically in the slides that there will be a Q&A, but yeah, you can ask questions. You can say that in 1.5 hour, whether we covered full of tender and procurement, maybe I'll say we have covered 5% of the whole gamut of tendering process and procurement process. Yes, it is such a vast subject. So today, whatever I gave you is a gist of all the things that happen in particularly in Indian context and particularly in the context of Indian Railway and the metros and the suppliers that are involved. So I tried to cover all the areas with the customer's point of view as well as the supplier point of view, but still there could be so many that I would have missed. So get me few questions, maybe whatever time we have, and then if at all we have to cut short after some time, still I am open on various forums. You can ask these questions to me. Okay, the floor is all yours now.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for this wonderful session and insights.
And then sorry, I didn't take a break. Uh, if somebody wants a break, I don't mind, but I'm not very keen on that. So it's okay. If we can run through the questions, I don't.
So, sir, I think we've got 2, 3 questions which I think we should be taking them up. So there is a question from Mangesh Chore who has who's asking if the L1 lowest bidder quotes above the tender value or contract value, can he receive that contract on the same value? Example, he's giving an example. Uh, if the tender value by client is 70 crores, whereas
Yeah.
during bidding, 3 contractors bid 104, 110, 123 crores respectively, can the employer uh, give the contract to L1 bidder on bidding amount? That is 104 CR.
Yeah. So, if you ask me for the case studies, there are cases where the customers have given the order much higher than their estimates. Okay. There are so many cases where when the tender estimate would have been 100 crores and the lowest bidder would have been 80 crores. This happened in Delhi Metro. Okay. Line 3, blue line. 100 crores was the signaling estimate. Sorry, 100 million euros. Okay. 100 million euros was the DMRC's budget, and the winner, the bidder was 85, if I'm right. Okay. So they quoted. But yeah, the benefit was taken by DMRs, right? So when the benefit was taken, similarly, there were cases when the loss also had to be taken. So in some of the tenders, the lowest bidder's price, take a case of Bangalore Metro, the lowest bidder was higher than the cost estimate or the tender estimate, but it was awarded at that rate. So I have both the cases. I don't want to go too deep into individual names and individual companies that won the contracts, but ideally it can be given as long as it is justified and reasonable. See, many times what happens is when somebody tells that I have taken this cost estimate on the basis of some study, right? Or last accepted rate or something, they have some standards. And this happened very much in Indian Railways, in most of the individual small contracts. I'm talking about signaling contracts and all that. So at one point of time, the electronic interlocking equipment, every lowest bidder was always higher than the tender, tender estimate. So they were people were telling that if you are within 25% more, we can give the contract. I don't see any logic in that. Why 25%? Why not 50%? Why not 10%?
I think there is some internet connectivity issue, Ravi Prakash sir. Stand. Okay.
Who is having contact? I'm okay. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir. Now we can, sir. In between, there was some disturbance. We lost you.
Okay. Are you clear? I think my signal shows very strong. Yeah. My Wi-Fi seems to be very strong. All right. So, yeah, to cut it short, it is possible to give a contract even if L1 is higher than the exit rate, as long as we are able to do a proper justification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, I'll take one more question
Yes, please.
uh, from Mustaqim. He's asking, in case of tie of offers or bid, how tender
Says we can't hear. Abdullah says we can't hear.
uh, are you able to hear Abdullah now? Is it okay? Please type in yes in the chat box if you're able to hear me now. Is it better now? Is the voice better? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think he's okay. Yeah.
So uh,
What's his question?
Mustaqim is asking, in case of tie of offers bids, how tenders are finalized further? When to resort to two-stage tendering?
These are two different questions, I think. What is the
Yes.
first part of it? If there is a tie,
Tie of offers bid, how tenders are finalized further? This is question one.
tie of offers, I don't understand. How can somebody get exactly equal? You mean to say both quote exactly the same price?
Yes, sir. Probably yes. This is what he's writing.
I think in my entire 30 years in rail industry, I never saw that, except that there was one tender where the difference was 40 rupees between one company and other company, L1 and L2. It was running into crores. The whole tender value was many crores, but at the end, it came to the last few digits. And there it was 40 rupees was the difference between L1 and L2. So the L2 guy was literally, kicking in his stomach. So it's a very interesting situation. Both, see, many times when it happens, we suspect some foul play. Many times the customer says, how both of you joined together, you formed a cartel, you did something. All those questions will arise if L1 and L2 are of same place. But anyway, very rare situation. I would be amused if I see exact tie between both. Yeah. And but when it comes to two-stage, see, two-stage is a very interesting, and it is nowadays it is becoming popular as well. See, generally two-stage was used mainly for appointing consultants, general consultants, and these people were appointed on the basis or shortlisted on the basis of their expertise and experience, because majority are subjective. See, when you have a subjective uh, evaluation to be done, then they always don't want to go for a single process, because in a single process, if you try to do a subjective evaluation, then it becomes a sort of a uh, dissatisfaction among the suppliers. The suppliers won't like. You say that, oh, you told me that I don't have the capacity, but somebody with the same document has said that I am having the capacity. So on the basis of that subjectivity, people won't like it. So what we normally do is we use what is known as a QCBS process. And in a QCBS process, you also talk about the quality, cost, brand, everything. You give value to all those systems according to a weightage. Individual weightage is given 30% weight to your brand, 30% to your efficiency, your past records, how many metros you have done. So that is again a objective thing available. You have done 20 projects, another guy has done 3 projects. So naturally, the guy who has done 20 projects would get a better mark, in terms of evaluation. So these are all done upfront, because you are not even opening the price bid. you are opening only the technical capability. I use the word capability, efficiency, and uh, capability and capacity. Both are very important. You are capable to do it, and you have the capacity. Plus, you have the experience. All the three are important. Once you do that, then you get pre-qualified. Once you are pre-qualified in the stage one, then it is the price only. Then they go for the price bid, and whoever is the lowest bidder will get that. So this is the two-stage process. In a two-stage process, you are eliminating the ambiguity by doing a sort of a different test altogether. You are not doing all the tests combined with the price. Because many times when you are having a single stage tender, at the end of the day, when you open the price and see somebody is very, very attractive and low, your decision gets clouded and you become like, oh, that guy has quoted so low. So because of that, you may get either very excited or you may get suspicious and you may disqualify straight away. I have seen many cases, L1s are not given the contract because you feel that that fellow did not understand what is requirement. So he quoted very, very, very low. And in the end, he was completely disqualified. And because there is no transparency and some sort of secrecy, they say that, no, we disqualified. So that is the problem when there is a single stage. In two stage, it is, you are eliminating those type of chances. So people are moving towards two stage.
Okay, sir, we have another question from RC Karima Zahra from Jakarta Supply Chain Team.
Okay.
First question is, how could you set a minimum level of local content for civil, which is 85% he's mentioned, rolling stock 75%, and signaling and telecommunication 50%. Do you have feasibility study in the market prior to set in the tender requirement?
Yeah. Well, this has got a lot of history. Of course, I can relate this mainly to the Indian environment. In India, we many years ago we were taking every product. I'm talking of 30-40 years ago. Anything electronics, anything related to little bit of modern thing, we were 100% importing. Then those days, the Department of Industry and all those people created what is known as a PMP, phased manufacturing program. So every country has got their own ambitions and aspirations. So they said that, why don't you manufacture something here? And they created what is known as, when you are importing the item, if the same item is available in India, somebody has developed it, they called that particular item as a restricted item. They said that you can import it, but you have to pay higher customs duty or imports duty. This is how it started in the early 70s and 80s. And when the country opened up, during the reforms, many people were given that freedom to import more. But at the same time, they said there is a restriction. If you are trying to import just because it is cheaper and it is also good, it looks nice, but you are ignoring an Indian manufacturer. So they wanted to give a little bit of encouragement to an Indian company. So they made those things. And this is not applicable to India alone. We call it anti-dumping. We call it with the different words in countries outside also. They also restrict the imports and encourage the local manufacturers. That is how it started long ago. Gradually, it started improving. You have your own local Indian manufacturers, and these manufacturers keep updating their records to the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Commerce. They say, I am manufacturing so much every year in India. So then if the same things can be done in India, then they will say, why not we use it? So a large civil organization like L&T or Tata Projects or any big company, if they're able to build a huge highway or a road overbridge or a flyover, then they say that, why don't you do a viaduct in railway? So that is how the metro started taking the viaduct from those people who are good in civil engineering. And that is how the civil engineering work started. But initially those girders and all that, there were some import content in that, whether it is part of the steel or high strength steel or whatever we call it. But later on, the iron and steel industry also buckled up their things, and then they started manufacturing. So it is not just one railway industry. It is the overall industry has gradually moved up. So every year there is a sort of uh, checking your capability to manufacture the product in India, be it civil or be it electrical, be it electronics, all the things. So today, if you ask me for electrical systems, if you have overhead electrification, we are doing large electrical projects everywhere in India. We are doing the high tension wires. We are doing, the city civil supplies and large industrial supply. We are doing the receiving stations. We are doing the inverters and converters, everything in India. So they say, what is the difference between that and what you are using in railway? So this is how the ministry or the industry department also will try to put some sort of conditions. And if somebody says, no, 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 I have to import, then they try to put more restriction on him and say that, no, you have to do it mandatory. So initially they encourage, gradually they put it mandatory. And at the end of the day, they want to save the foreign exchange money. So it's all economics of the country. It is in that manner, it is more of a policy of the country to see that you go for Make in India. So the percentages, when I said 50, I remember in the early 2000, 2001, it was only around 10% localization. When we first did the Delhi Metro, the signaling portion, hardly we had 10% import, 10% local. Everything was imported, including the engineering design. So later on, we had the engineers in India who were doing the design themselves. By the time the extension of project came, people started doing the work here. So the system engineering design, the application engineering design, the delivery of the project, installation design, all those things also earlier were imported, but later on that became local. So this is nothing but encouraging the money to stay within India, not to keep on throwing your dollars and euros. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So it's a very systematically arrived at process.
So I think RC, sir, Ravi Prakash sir has already answered both your questions. His second question was how you substitute those systems are constructed under international contractors which contain non-local content to increase the local content level during maintenance period. I think you've already covered a major
Yeah.
significant
Yeah,
issue.
there are, see, definitely no country can impose something on your proprietary rights. Your IP is very important for you as an organization. You have worked for years and developed the intellectual property. So that's a different subject altogether. I would definitely like to talk a lot on intellectual property because having worked for all the multinational companies for 30 years, I know how difficult it is to give away your intellectual system or drawing or software, whatever it is. We never gave it. So it is always the customer who can be reasonable. If you are able to convince the customer in a reasonable way, okay, you are saying, but then don't be unreasonable to say that my software is costing 50% of the total project cost. Then it looks a little bit ridiculous. That small software cost may not be so expensive. So that is why today, when they say signaling telecom is only 50%, because they identified that this involves a lot of electronics work, software work. Majority of the hardware is not available in India because still we don't manufacture chips in India. We have to import a lot. So because of that, they put the restriction. Why they did not put 75-80% for signaling telecom? Because those things are difficult. There is a lot of intellectual property required outside. So that is why they put 50. Okay. But again, I'm saying that these are the guidelines, and to some extent, some customers can also take this as a little bit of a deviation. They say, if I can convince in a right way that I can do only 48%, So there is no hard and fast exactly 50%, but you have to show that you are approaching towards that 50%.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Before I take more questions, I'll just spend 2-3 minutes on this new course that we're building on tendering and procurement management.
Go ahead.
You see these 12 sessions right in front of you. Uh, we'll be sharing more details about these in your email IDs. So this training program has been developed to actually help you understand the complete tendering and procurement process, develop skills to manage procurement documents, and also to gain insights into risk management, legal frameworks, and international best practices. So I'll just take you briefly through the session outlines. So each of these session has a small case study discussions at the end of the session. So first session is on tendering and procurement, where we'll be talking about what is a tendering process, importance, objective, who are the key stakeholders, and what is the procurement cycle. Second one, we have procurement planning and strategy, where we'll be where the faculty would be discussing procurement strategy, risk management, market research, and supplier analysis. So we'll be doing case studies on taking cues from various major railway projects in session 2. Session 3, we'll be looking at tendering processes and documentation. What are the essential tender documentation like RFP, RFQ, ITT, and how drafting or specification is done. We'll be looking at analyzing various tender documents from high-profile railway projects. Session 4, we'll be looking at supplier pre-qualification and evaluation. How suppliers are pre-qualified, what are the vendor evaluation methods, how compliance is done with technical and financial requirements. So we'll take up a small case study where we'll be talking about supplier selection in a railway procurement scenario. Going forward, we'll be talking about contract management in railways, which is session 5, where we'll be looking at types of contract, could be lump sum, unit price, cost plus, turnkey. What are the key clauses in railway contracts? How contract performance changes and what are the variations? Then we'll be looking at e-procurement and digital platforms which are being used. We'll be talking about legal and regulatory consideration for e-tendering. Session 7, we'll be covering bid evaluation techniques and technical and financial evaluation criteria, how contracts awarding is being done, procurement of signaling, rolling stock, and other specialized rail systems. What are the challenges and what are the best practices? Then we'll cover risk management and mitigation measurements, followed by legal detailed session on legal and regulatory frameworks. Then we'll also have a session on international procurement and global best practices. And there are certain case studies. The most interesting part of this training program is going to be, it's not going to be just a training session, but we have designed a very interesting concept for this training program, which is a group assignment. So from the batch, we will divide trainees into a group of 4 or 5 members. Each group will be given the same tender document related to a metro or a mainline railway project, and you will be analyzing those tender documents. So they could be from rolling stock, signaling systems, rail infrastructure. So each group will be responsible for evaluating the provided tender document around tender requirements, supplier pre-qualification, evaluation process, risk management, contractual aspects, and ethical and legal considerations. So you'll be analyzing these 6 aspects and will be doing a presentation after these 12 hours of training. 15 minutes presentation would be done by each group, talking about supplier evaluation, risk assessment, contractual reviews, and legal ethical consideration. So this presentation will demonstrate your understanding of a real world tender document. And this will be evaluated by experts like Ravi Prakash sir and a couple of more railway experts who will be evaluating these presentations and would be asking you questions whether you've actually understood concepts to apply them in real life. So this is what makes this training program very unique than the rest of the programs, because here you will be actually doing a demo run of a real time tender process. So this is what we planned in the training program. So in addition to 12 hours, we'll also plan a presentation of 2 hours in which there will be presentations and experts like Ravi Prakash sir or some other railway professionals will be guiding you in actual cases. So this is what we are looking at. So we price this very aggressively for people who are interested. We are looking at rolling out this course program in the month of October. So 12,000 INR is the fees plus GST. If you convert it into USDs, it will be around $180. For AED, it's 620. There are installment option schemes available, group discounts available. You could contact us for further details on this email ID and number. We'll be happy to share more details about it. We'll also email you this brochure so that you could study this in detail. And that's all from my side. And I will take up some more questions from the audiences. Sir, there is one more question from
Yeah.
Shubham Shirore, who's asking
Hmm.
a question on yes. Okay, if an alternative bid needs to be submitted, how to how it would be evaluated taking into consideration it is not main scope.
Uh, I did not. I'm also seeing that particular chart, though I did not understand completely. But I see alternate bid generally is given after
Sir,
the original bid is
if
submitted.
Abdullah is here. Abdullah, I am unmuting you. Could you ask your question directly
Yeah,
to? Yes. Abdullah, I'm just unmuting you. If you could
Abdullah
ask.
Ali. Yeah,
Yes. Yes, Abdullah, please. Uh,
Hello?
yeah.
yes.
Go
You
ahead,
can.
please.
Hi. Thank
Yeah.
you for your valuable information. I just need to ask you about this. Like, if we have an alternative bid to be submitted with the main scope, and it's not like necessary to submit, but it is like optional,
Mhm.
how it would be evaluated fairly later on when you will do like the closing of the tender?
Yep. Uh, See, generally what happens is sometimes the customer uh, has got a requirement for a particular solution. I will take a very example in metros, the technology which we were earlier using for signaling. This was known as distance to go. And then there was this new technology that came out, which was then called as the CBTC technology. So now CBTC has become standardized. So people don't talk much about the old one, the distance to go. But earlier days when this distance to go was the standard, and few of the companies or the suppliers, they said, why not you try a CBTC technology? Then the customer in their tender documents have already mentioned that you please give your offer for the distance to go because that is my requirement. But as an option, you also give me a quote for CBTC. Then we will go through. See, CBTC is a completely a different system altogether. You can't. It's not a, like a comparing an orange to an orange or an apple to an apple. If today you take a CBTC quote of X supplier and a CBTC quote of Y supplier, maybe you can call them as apple to apple. But you can't take a distance to go quotation from somebody and then take a CBTC. You can't do that. So in this case, what happened? One of the clients, again, I'll keep the name, I'll withhold the name, but they asked for both the stuff, both the offers, but these two have happened in the initial stage itself, not after the first stage has failed. But this is one of the cases. They asked the suppliers, all the suppliers, to quote for both distance to go and as an option the CBTC. And it is a fact that at the end of the day, they found that all the people quoted for distance to go, and not all, maybe two or three people quoted for the CBTC as an option. And at the end of the day, the customer decided not to go for the old technology because they did their own analysis and ultimately decided to take the CBTC forward, and that was the contract that was awarded to the lowest bidder again. So it is an alternative optional bid. It was not the original bid. Having said that, if during the course of the project, there can be some additional requirement. I don't call it as an alternate bid. It could be some additional scope. They may say the customer needs to extend the line. You have taken a metro line for 25 kilometers or 30 kilometers. And later on, suddenly you say, no, I want to add few more kilometers extension, and I want to give it in the same order as an extension. So you can quote for that. So then that becomes not exactly an alternate bid, but strictly speaking, it is alternate because you may not quote the same. You will say, for this extension, I have to do more work. So it is not easy like what I did for the 30 kilometers. So for this extra 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers, I am going to charge you much higher. So that becomes an alternate bid. So these are the things that are different things that come. So that is why I asked you to open up and tell me what is the situation, because alternate bids can happen in different scenarios, in different situations. So depending on that, you can call for an alternate bid. You can't call, but for the same thing, same product, you have quoted once. Now you will not tell them that, okay, I'm giving you another chance to quote. Sorry, that they generally don't do. If they do that, it becomes a negotiation. You have already identified somebody as an L1 bidder and call the L1 bidder for a negotiation, and then they do the negotiation. And there is another process which is very interesting, which is called reverse tender, reverse auction. You are aware of that? Reverse auction is something very, very, I would use the word disturbing when it came in Indian environment. You call the L1 and the L2, both L1 and L2, and you ask them to fight it out. So, it's like the cat and the monkey story, the two cats and the monkey. So you say you reduce it, and they keep on fighting. Ultimately, somebody who goes lower will be given the contract. That's a very dangerous situation, I would say it personally. So many companies felt scared when this type of tender was once introduced in India. I don't know whether any such situations are there. Somebody can come and say that if such tenders are there on their chat box, they can tell that, yes, still some tenders are going like that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for answering this question. Shubham Shirore has asked a question. Shubham, could you, I'll unmute you and you may ask your question directly if you wish to, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Go ahead,
Hello.
Shubham.
Sir, my question is that it is found after technical and financial evaluation. Let us consider X is a L1 firm, and uh, management wants to allot the contract to L2. In this case, let us consider it is Y, sir.
Yeah.
So, tender in any condition by mentioning that L1 quoted above the estimated cost and it is too much costly for the organization, the tender is called off or maybe discharged. And then a tender again called, and in this case, the L2, who is Y, uh, he is now new L1,
Yeah.
and then organization allotted the new L1. That is why in second case. So is it okay or fine, sir?
See, if you ask me on the basis of a FIDIC, there is a global standard, right? There is an
Yes.
international standard. Generally, these are not admissible or acceptable to such contracts. If you are taking both the people up to, in fact, in my presentation also, I said, after you have done all the work, if you are discharging the tender, that itself means that you have become biased, or you have,
Yes.
you did not take the right evaluation process in the beginning itself. So the customer is not always the king, and customer is not always right. We have to talk about this with openness. So in India, still people are very, very hesitant to tell the customer that you are wrong. But if it is a situation, there are cases I myself, I have seen them, that when a tender has been discharged after lot of work, the suppliers have put up with the customer and they said that if this is the way you are going to operate, we are not going to participate in your future tenders. This happened. So it is a question of, your original objective was that you want more bidders. But if somebody doesn't want to bid, then if he is unhappy with the situation, then that itself is a drawback to that customer. So whatever you are telling is, one-off cases or two-off cases. I don't say that it is a regular thing, a customer favoring another supplier. Generally, we say that in an ideal good situation, it should not happen. And it should not happen to the extent of calling another guy and saying that, look, this guy is L1. Now I am going to cancel the tender. You are going to come with a new tender, and again you quote. Now you know who is L1. You quote lower than me. So that means you are straight away, this is not right as for the public procurement process. It could be okay in a private organization. If you are a small private company, you can call your supplier and do this bargaining and do all that. Okay. But not for large projects, which are again subject to scrutiny of Auditor General and all those, laws of the land. Ideally, people should not encourage such things. And from both customer and the supplier side, if somebody is doing something wrong in that way, they have to be reported.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
I'll stop to that extent. I'll not say how to do it and whether any cases were there. Yeah, there were few cases we have seen, but a small percentage, I would call it. It doesn't happen in every contract.
Okay, sir.
Did I answer you, Shubham?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, we'll take the last question from Vaibhav Upadhyay. Vaibhav, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hello sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so my question is basically related to the inspections which are carried out by the agencies which are authorized for supplying, in the perspective of signal and telecom specifically.
Mhm.
So there is a lot of cost involved in that. So how can we rationalize that cost?
Uh, when we use the word inspection, I always get into my olden ISO 9000 days. In fact, I was one of those first few ISO 9000 auditors in India way back in 1991, when ISO was just a new one coming in India. See, the inspection versus assurance. This is something, related to the quality. People always say that you don't do inspection, you try to do give an assurance. Quality assurance is better than quality control, and 100% inspection is never a great thing. But yeah, we are still very happy doing 100% inspection. And when we talk about inspection agency or a third party inspection, I'm not pointing this only to Indian Railway or an RDSO inspection. It happens even when non-rail industries also. There could be international bodies doing the inspection. Uh, there are many companies who do that for your material to be exported to some other countries. So when we talk about doing the inspection, how effectively you can manage the cost so that your overall cost of procurement, it is ultimately a cost. Somebody is paying. And who is that somebody? you and me, at the end of the day, we are the users of the system, whether it is the rail or whether it is anything. So whenever we are doing the inspection, this regime of inspection should move towards the quality assurance. And then from quality assurance, you have to also move into what is known as self-certification. See, if you are able to believe your supplier when he gives a self-certification that I have done this and I am correct. In fact, we used to have this requirement matrix coming in some of the projects, particularly on the safety. So I had one international safety expert from France who used to tell me that your Indian railway requirement is here. My normal standard itself is here. So just because Indian Railway is asking me to give only here, I don't bring it down. I want to still give it at this level. Hope you are seeing my hands. So he used to show with his hands, and he used to tell me that I would like to keep my product and my solution and my system as per that standard for which this product was designed and manufactured. So just because you are not asking, I will not bring down the requirement. So this should be the mentality from the supplier. And once he certifies that his safety is at a SIL4 level, you are talking about the signaling and telecom equipment. Telecom is still not SIL4, but nowadays, if signaling and telecom are used to run the rail operation, then they also become SIL4 very soon. So what I'm trying to say is, if your system is already at a very, very established higher level of safety or the integrity level, you have to maintain and self-certify. And if you self-certify it, people should accept that. But for that, they have to get that sort of confidence in you that you don't cheat as a supplier. So that sort of belief, among both the customer and the supplier, if it happens, then only, this regime, this cost, everything will. See, I remember when somebody was telling that if you have to do a small change in the system, just do it and then patch it up and then put it across my system. There were guys who refused to do that. They said, no, if I do a small patch up, I have to take it back, do a thorough test again, completely run the entire cycle of software or whatever it is. And particularly for signaling guys, we used to say that every change you do in the system, you have to test whether that change is doing what it is supposed to do. And it is also not doing what it is not supposed to. This is a very, very magic words. They say that that particular change should do what it is supposed to do, and it should not do what it is not supposed to. That means it should not create a new problem. So these are the things which particularly in signaling, electrical, rolling stock, people have to, particularly they are the main systems to run. They have to ensure that all these things are done. And there is a very interesting book called Quality is Free, Phil Crosby. So if you get time, you guys can read that. Phil Crosby always says that don't try to bring the whole regime into, inspecting everything and saying that, yeah, because I inspected, I am sure. It's not like that. Move into assurance. Then only your cost of inspection will come down. Then only your cost of procurement will come down. And simultaneously, the quality of your system, product, services, everything will go up. Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much for this wonderful session, sir. Thank you so much for imparting insights from your experience and knowledge. So on behalf of Railway Academy and all the participants, sir, I would like to thank you for taking out your...
Thank you to all the guys who participated. And if I am always open, if people are not connected to me on LinkedIn, they can do that and then pose your questions. I don't mind answering. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sumit, for your nice interaction today. And we hope we will have more such sessions in future too.
Definitely, sir. Definitely. Thank you. It's an
Thank
honor
you.
for Railway Academy to have you with
Thank
us.
you, everyone. Bye-bye.
And good evening.